Hi, I'm Miriam Ibrahim. I'm editor for Disruption magazine, and I'm here today with Amit Ramlall and as well as his father Kumar. Amit is founder of the Chintan project, which is a consulting firm based in Edmonton, Alberta. I say consulting firm, but I think it's a lot more than that, as we're going to learn in our conversation today. To begin, Amit, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your background and your experience.
I'm looking forward to this session with you too, Miriam. I am a student and polymath more than anything else. And I have dedicated my life to helping each person find and follow their true calling. Because that, Miriam, is how you lead the world. I had autism spectrum disorder, as you know, and also severe developmental delay. And when my body wasn't working so well, I cultivated my mind, which I'm grateful did work.
I think before we go on any further, why don't you explain a little bit to us about how you're communicating with us today and how your father is interpreting for you and what you're using there?
Sure. One of the residual effects from autism is that my independent speech is not where I'd like it to be. I struggle with that. And while it is getting better, I find this facilitated communication card, this FC card, much more efficient. The card, Miriam, is you can see it's a letterboard, and the back has got all kinds of mathematical symbols that we work with, but it's a letterboard, 50-cent piece of plastic, with which Amit has written thousands of pages of manuscript and consulting with people all around the world. Basically, Miriam, I type on the card, and my dad reads what I type. Hence the robot voice.
Yes.
It would be obvious to the audience when I am speaking and when he is.
Right. Yeah, when you're doing the interpreting, Kumar. I mean, it's really ingenious, and I think obviously it's done really well for you in terms of being able to communicate and achieve everything you're wanting to achieve through, as you said, a 50-cent piece of plastic. So, it goes to show sometimes the best solutions are often the most simple ones too. Amit, you mentioned obviously as you were introducing yourself that you have autism spectrum disorder. And I'm curious about, how you think your ASD influences and informs your perspective and your insights into the world. I think from speaking to you before, it seems to me that you see it as something that you really lean on, and it's not something that's prevented you from achieving anything that you've wanted to achieve and from doing anything you've wanted to do.
There was a time, Miriam, when I would bang my head on the walls like you are used to thinking of with autism. But more importantly, I will say I was blessed to have been called and treated as stupid. That made me learn to think for myself. That has been the greatest gift.
So let's talk a little bit about your company, the Chintan Project. Tell me about the company and what you provide to clients who come to you for help.
William Ury of negotiation fame said the following: after all my years in negotiation and global influence, here's what I've learned. You can't make anyone do anything. Here's something else I have realized and leverage in my work. The only things you have control over are your perceptions, your decisions, your actions. And we help our clients have more empowering perceptions, decisions, and actions if they want. Remember, you can't make anyone do anything.
I'm going to come back to some of those ideas around perceptions and decisions and actions, but I'm curious too about what was it that motivated you to start this company, this project, the Chintan Project? What was it that said to you, I can help people in this way? What sparked that in you?
When I was 3 years old and more affected by autism, Mr. Bill Bartman let me attend his courses on business. He had overcome significant personal challenges and went on to lead a Fortune 50 company. I learned from him that business was a way to make a grand difference in the world. In fact, he said, you can only do that with politics or business. And neither of us was cut out for politics. So here we are.
How long have you been doing this for? And how old are you now, Amit?
I'm 20, and I have been doing this for longer than Chintan Project has existed. I started studying about human achievement to get myself better. And As I studied and wrote, it became clear that others could use this too.
So at first it was really about, helping yourself in some inward looking, approaches, and then realize that you wanted to bring that to other people too. I think that's really incredible. And, you mentioned off the top of our conversation today about some of your abilities, in terms of, a lifelong learner. I think you've mentioned, and I've read on your website, that you've really read over 14,000 nonfiction books. It seems you've really amassed this really deep well of knowledge that you're applying to your work. I'm curious about what you've learned along the way, about how people should approach challenges that we're facing, and in terms of unlocking new potentials or new perceptions, and developing the ability to take those actions.
Here's a few things I've figured out about this universe of ours. It is incredibly efficient. There are no duplicates, or the duplicate wouldn't exist. And so I know that each person has a reason for being, a purpose that is unique to them. And I know too that the challenges that each of us face are purposed to and unique to each of us. Exactly the same outward circumstance is perceived differently by each individual.
So what does that mean then for, when you're talking about challenges, and, we might all be facing the same sort of broad challenge from the outside. But, internally, I may view it as something completely different from somebody next to me, or I might be experiencing it in a different way, or it might be affecting me in a different way. What does that then mean, when we're looking at some of these big challenges, these global challenges, even that are affecting all of us, but affecting all of us in perhaps different ways, or are being perceived by those of us in different ways? What does that hold then for approaches that we take to those challenges?
I'm certain that it affects us in different ways because we have those unique perceptions. So take COVID, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Global situation that affected different countries, different individuals differently. And in every challenge, there is hidden opportunity. Some chose to go looking for that, and others were consumed with woe unto me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I wonder then what that means for, for those big challenges, in this issue of disruption, we're looking at some of the big questions around, environment, social issues, and governance, ESG, but also, how that intertwines with issues around diversity and equity and inclusion. It brings up, issues of climate change, of social inequality, of gender inequality, of all of these big, seemingly almost insurmountable problems in many ways because of just how far reaching they can be, and how much effort they sometimes feel like they will take to actually be tackled and solved. I'm curious about your perspective on how globally we look at some of these challenges and begin to address them, keeping in mind that you can't make someone do what they won't want to do, and some of these unique perceptions that we all have to contend with.
I start with the same premise that our challenges are purposed. In fact, we get exactly what we most need to learn and to grow in this moment. So let's take a few of those issues. Take equity, for instance. I think it is important to distinguish equity from equality. And there has never been a time throughout history where resources are equally distributed. So I think the universe tells us what is actual. For us to try to impose unrealistic expectations onto the universe is going to set us up for disaster, failure. Now, if we were to distinguish that from equity, we are into the realm, the exploration of fairness. And that raises some interesting questions. What is fair? It's not equal. What about the argument that I should be entitled to something? I have rights on something without a calculation of what those rights mean in terms of obligations. Who owes me what? And why? Let me possibly ruffle some feathers. I would be disgusted if I felt I got some opportunity because of a checkbox or quota. So I guess that's not too politically correct.
That's okay. We're interested in provocative ideas at Disruption, and we're also just interested in your perspective
You see,
around these issues.
I think that greater than the issues you raised is the politicization of thought.
Mm.
We shut down debate. And when someone disagrees with dogma, we treat them as a Neanderthal. So I think that this suppression of debate is of great concern to our society.
Mhm.
It
It's really
is this debate, this sometimes messy struggle through divergent opinions that has allowed us to evolve as a society.
And I think it's interesting because obviously you're really interested in learning about different perspectives and ideas and ways of thinking, just obviously with all of the books and ideas that you've consumed over your life. And I think you know that obviously informs a lot of how you approach things because you have had this opportunity to take in and retain so many different ideas and so many different theories and perspectives. And I think probably more than most of us would have had the opportunity to do, right?
Well, you have had likely different opportunities to learn from the world. I had to be home schooled in part because I was biting kids at school.
Yeah.
The end result of that, though, was I got the opportunity to bribe, manipulate, call it what you will, my parents into letting me study as I was interested.
Yeah. Well, and when you ended up starting Chintan Project, you were I think still a teenager, isn't that right?
Yes, in fact, Chintan Project was first started with my parents as the principals because I was underage. I called myself the chairman and visionary. And in some ways, that is still how I think of my role in the company.
Mhm. When we were talking earlier about what really motivates you, you spoke a little bit about certainty of underlying purpose, and you've come back to that idea a few times around everything having a purpose and a reason. You know, I'm curious about that idea. You know, how does that certainty that you've acquired translate into your business model and the work that you do with your clients?
We work predominantly with business owners or business executives. And our work is, we call it for lack of better label, advisors in human achievement. And the principle is the following. Many business owners think of themselves as the head of their organization or executives of their divisions, for example. Our clients would disagree. They have the insight that they are also the bottleneck. Their thinking is the bottleneck between good to great. And thinking is simply adapting more empowering perceptions, decisions, and actions that align with your purpose.
So what kind of clients do you help? I mean, who comes to you for seeking help for unlocking some of that potential as you describe it?
I've got a funny story about a high level consultant. He was struggling with what he called imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
How was he qualified to do what he did without a Harvard or Wharton MBA? You have met those types, Miriam.
I think lots of us too struggle with imposter syndrome from time to time.
So here was the whole consult. Why then, let's call him John. Why then, John, are you paying a little autistic kid handsomely for this consult? He got the message.
Mm-hmm.
We have had many clients who perceive that they are at a transition point in their life. They are struggling with clarity as to what next. Jarrett had a mom who died of suicide at 18 years old and perceived his life as full of trauma. He was too a student of the mysteries, and he had come to telling himself that there must be a reason. And all the while feeling like he was a fraud. He sold his business at 38 and retired, so to speak. In a single session, he said the following: there is a beauty here to all of this. And once you see it, it can't be unseen. All we did was help him with more empowering perceptions. There is something else, Miriam, and it has to do with this perception of what's fair or not. Remember, you get exactly what you deserve. And if you don't empower yourself, you will be overpowered. That's not kind or mean, right or wrong. It is a universal law. I would rather empower my clients to have empowering perceptions, to empower their life in every area. This rule applies to individuals, and it also applies to countries.
And organizations, I would imagine, as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it's really about mindsets and mindset shifts and having the ability to look at things in different ways, ask different questions, perhaps. Sometimes I think we focus a lot on solutions, and really sometimes what we need to be doing is asking ourselves whether we're asking the right questions about what we're trying to solve.
Absolutely. Questions determine the course of your life and determine to the course of evolution. Empowering questions do just that. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of your approach with your clients is really around asking them questions, about why and what they're doing.
Yes. I have certainty that whatever crap they are experiencing in the moment is purposed. That is all I bring to the conversation. That certainty. And I ask questions to bring their awareness to things that they may not yet have ever considered.
Well, I mean, I think that certainty is really interesting, and obviously, I think it informs a lot of the approach that you take. And it's been really great to be able to hear your perspective today and learn more about your company and what you do. And I know our audience at Disruption will be really interested as well. So I want to thank you again, Amit, for taking the time to have this conversation with us for Disruption Magazine. It was really refreshing and really interesting, and I think will likely challenge some of our own audience's perceptions, you know, around the potential out there, around reason, around challenge, and about, you know, people with autism spectrum disorder, and you know, the idea that you know, you're able to bring that experience and that perspective into the work that you do in really powerful ways and help a lot of people. So I really want to thank you again for this conversation. It's been really wonderful.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I find it somewhat cute that your magazine is named Disruption Magazine. And I think that exploring disruptive ideas, evolutionary ideas, is key to our growth.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're all about, is really looking at those stories that would go otherwise untold, and really thinking about you know, exactly that, those disruptive ideas, those disruptive you know, companies, tech, that sort of thing that really has the potential to transform. And I think this has been a really transformational conversation for me, at least, and I'm sure that our audience is going to feel the same. So thank you so much again. I really appreciated it.
Thank you very much, Marianne.